Hi guys, I welcome you all to this technical workshop. We are today here to discuss on few widely used techniques in the civil engineering industry, like My1 shuttering, pile foundation, exclusively for tall structures, project management techniques, and execution of industrial buildings. Moving forward, I would like to brief you all on the program schedule. We are a team of 5 with myself, Kushal, working as a design manager in one of the leading structural design firm. I have 7+ year exposure to the industry and have designed structures up to G+25 and over 2 million square feet. Well, I believe reading and understanding the design drawings is a basic requirement any civil engineer need to have. Having witnessed, many are really clueless on design intent of the structure they are executing. They have done blunders because of lack of understanding in the design requirement. Hence, we will be discussing a few topics on reading and understanding the design intents. Next, guys, I will be discussing on various construction execution techniques for our next 4 sessions. My colleague, Mr. Rajendra, Senior Project Manager in VA, will be discussing on quantity surveying and cost estimation and contracting and tendering for our 2 sessions. Teaming up with us, we are having 3 guest speakers. Mr. Aditya Satish, GM, Seacon Engineering Private Limited, will be discussing on project management techniques. Mr. Vijay Kumar, Senior Project Manager, L&T ECC, will be discussing on execution of industrial buildings. Finally, Mr. Chandrasekhar, Project Manager, Fabs India Private Limited, will be discussing on My1 shuttering execution and pile foundation. Before getting into the technical, guys, I would like to brief you all on job history in civil engineering firm. Before year 2000, there were no much companies or industries to offer the jobs for civil engineers. Hence, the mostly options left were to become a government engineer or to become a contractor. Post 2000, because of technological revolution in IT sector, corporate culture started booming. More industries started offering jobs to engineers with higher pays, because of which great demand for the infrastructure was created by IT companies, and also the demand was in urgent basis for their office spaces, residences for their employees, which led into the starting of civil engineering industries in good number, and they started offering more jobs. Well, suddenly in year 2007, we witnessed a sudden downfall in the job market. Many people lost their jobs. Engineers with skill sets and talent managed to survive in the industry, and the scenario what we are discussing is about the recession that happened in the year 2007. Slowly again, the graph of engineering market started to rise exponentially, but it got flattened somewhere in the year 2013 because of technology almost reaching its saturation. Once again, people lost their jobs, but this time, people with technical skill set and credibility managed to survive. Engineers moved out of the corporate culture and started to establish their own startups. That somehow we managed to hang out, but once again, now in 2020, because of this pandemic disease, the situation is even more worse. Engineers have already lost their jobs, and it might get even worse. Having said that, now the engineering graduate freshers at entry levels, only with skill set, credibility, and patience can win this moment. You will be requiring patience for learning skill set and credibility for becoming the entrepreneurs. Well, guys, we can say people are still respecting the individuality in civil engineering discipline. You might have observed that if at all you need to buy an electronic gadget or a car, nobody will approach an electronic engineer nor an automobile or mechanical engineer. You all will directly move into an outlet and will buy the product as per your requirements. Guys, if at all you need to build a house, do you think will you approach an industry like L&T? Hi guy, please help me in building out my dream house. No, forget about this. Sometimes even people are managing to build their own house just by hiring a mason who don't even have a graduation degree. But even on the verge of completing BE graduation, we will not be as confident as a mason to take up a project to practice independently. Because a mason's confident is that he has already done the things. At the same time, the freshers just know how to do the things. Having said that, it is very important for graduate engineer freshers at entry level to be skilled enough by having executed the professional work or have exposed at least on how professional culture really works. Keeping all of this in mind, in order to bridge the virtual gap created between academics and industry practice, we are here today to discuss few fundamental aspects of industrial practice. Hope you all will be benefited. To begin with, we are starting our discussion on reading and understanding the design drawings. Guys, we will be starting our discussion on architectural floor plans. And now the drawing which we are looking at is the ground floor plan. For keeping things as simple as possible, we are considering an independent G+2 villa for our discussion. Guys, the first more important aspect that you will be looking at in any architectural floor plan is the direction, the property line, setback extent, and the way the space is being designed. Guys, the property line plays very important role. If you misses it out, you may take your structure outside your owner's property. Thereby, you are creating a very big problem. So, marking your property line well, we will be looking forward on the space design aspects of the architectural drawing. Guys, here we have the provision for 2 car parks with a watchman room and an attached toilet. Moving upwards, you are coming to the first floor where the actual residence starts. Guys, you will be accessing to this 2 BHK flat through veranda, which has its own attached bath, a living room, which is directly accessing into the kitchen and the dining. This portion majorly being a dry area. The wet area is separated out with a separate utility. And here it's placed the master bedroom along with an attached bath. Also provisioned with a private balcony. In order to understand the design intent in a better way, you all need to visualize as though the structure is already built and you have completely moved in and out of this building, that's the way you can keep the design intent in your mind, and thereby you can further guiding your site laborers. Moving upstairs, it will be a replica of your first floor, the same 2 BHK flat, and above which in the third floor there is a change in design intent with two separate studio apartments with a multi-purpose hall having an attached bathroom. Again, in the terrace, you will be provisioned with a water tank. Guys, this being a frame structure, you will have to be visualizing each and every partition wall, its openings, location, and its size, which is being scheduled with the different nomenclatures. That different doors and different windows will be scheduled with different nomenclature with the sizes, and you will have to be extra careful with all the opening locations in mind so that no opening will be filled. Also, when we look into this architectural section drawings, friends, the data we will be obtaining from this is the floor to floor height that's being intended at every levels, the floor finish architect is expecting. See, this being the RCC slab top level above which you will be doing your flooring. This 75 mm thick will be indicating that the architect is planning somewhere like a granite finish. Normally the 75 mm finish will be allocated for the granite finishes, whereas your vitrified tiles will be requiring just 50 mm finish along with the screed. One more important area which you need to look at in the section drawings is your toilet areas. Guys, you can notice here that the top level, the slab top level in the toilet area is being depressed with respect to the various other areas. See, this is mainly due to you will have to be running the pipelines within the toilet, routing your pipelines, and above which you will be laying your toilet floorings. So normally you will be provisioned with say 200 mm sunk for the toilet areas. Not only the toilet areas, even in the balconies where it is exposed to the atmosphere, possibility of collection of rainwater is high, and you don't want the rainwater getting into your master bedroom, and hence you will be creating a level difference between your flooring of master bedroom and to your balcony. Thereby you are making sure no water will be entering from the balcony into your master bedroom. So these three areas need to be well in place. You will have to be noticing these three areas very well, and you cannot miss these areas out. One being balcony, toilet areas, and the utility area too. Because even in the utility area, you will be having wash basins, vagera, which in turn will be requiring the routing of pipelines. So the top level of these three areas will be definitely depressed with respect to the other areas top level, which if you misses it out, it will be a very big issue. And you can notice every design drawing will come up with a rider. This drawing shall be in conjunction with architectural, electrical and mechanical and other relevant drawings, and if any discrepancy in the drawing shall be brought to the notice of structural consultant or architect before execution. If you do not read, if you do not compare, or if you do not integrate all of the design drawings, and if you start executing looking at various design drawings independently, you will be in a very big mess. And ultimately, the blame will be on the person who executed the work rather than the designer, because the designer has given his intent and it is being captured in these drawings. But if you misses it out in the last point of execution, you will be in a very big mess. See, there will be penalty clauses both for the additional cost as well as delay in the work, which will be a major problem for any contractor. So with that in mind, we will be moving forward. Having discussed some key issues in the architectural drawings, we are now moving forward with the structural drawing, because for starting off any activity at site, guys, the first and foremost drawing you will be requiring is central line marking diagrams, and which we also term it as a column layout. With this central line marking diagram, you will be able to locate your property line, and you can able to transfer the central lines that are given in the drawing to the site. How exactly it is? With respect to the one corner of your property line, you can able to mark in your first vertical grid and your first horizontal grid. See, this is very crucial. Marking of your first vertical grid and your first horizontal grid will be very crucial. If you go wrong in this instant, everything will be mess. With this first vertical and horizontal grid, the rest of the grids will be just offsetted with the given distance. Okay. Next, having column locations and central line being marked with the help of central line diagram, we will be moving forward with the marking of footings. Friends, this magenta colored line is the demarcation of your footing concrete extent. The cyan colored line is the demarcation of your PCC extent. If we can able to look into a section of footing at that location, see this, by this you can able to get a fair idea on how exactly the footing extent and PCC extent will be. That magenta colored line is this footing extent, footing concrete extent, and that cyan colored line is this PCC extent, which will be 100 mm offset from the footing. Guys, you can also notice we will have to be provisioning an additional 300 mm all around the footing in order to get down there and work with the activities just like preparing your footing shuttering, laying your footing reinforcement bars, laying your column reinforcement bars, and to concrete in the footing. So in order to do all of these activities inside this pit, you will need to be walk all round, and for walking all round you will be requiring some working space, which usually we will be considering an addition of 300 mm from the PCC extent. Hence, at site level, with this PCC extent being given, you will be considering an additional 300 mm all round being marked, and the excavation process starts with that extent. Guys, with this section, you can clearly understand the various levels. See, this being FRL or EGL. See, various nomenclatures are NGL, FRL and EGL. Friends, NGL being your natural ground level, the level of the site will be as it is with the well consolidated soil, not with the well compacted soil. So without any man-made activity, if the level of the soil at the site remained as it is, we will term it as or nomenclate it as the NGL, and above which there will be formed road level. FRL is your formed road level. Generally, it will always be higher than your NGL, because whenever the government authority starts the construction activity, they will be laying the road levels much higher than the adjacent site areas or property areas. So in the vacant site, when you start doing your construction activity, even though your NGL is much lower than your road level, you will have to be raising your plinth level in the sense your ground floor level. You will have to be raising your ground floor level at least by 450 mm, just because you are making sure no rainwater or no runoff water will enter into your property from the road. So thereby you will be having your inside property inside level raised by at least 450 mm with respect to your road level. See, with this particular project, what we are speaking with, this was brought up by a different guy who had already leveled the site by raising it to the road level with 300 mm filling. Earlier the NGL was at 300 mm depressed level with respect to the road level. One guy has brought this site, he has leveled the site till the road level and he sold it off to a different person. Now the footings, the bottom of footings will always be given with respect to the natural ground level. No matter whatever the filling is being done at site, you will have to start considering your footing depth from the natural ground level. So it is being clearly given in the structural drawing that the bottom of your footing will be 2.5 meters below your NGL, and thereby you will be starting your excavation from the EGL, which is already being raised by the first owner by 300 mm. So 300 plus 2.5, altogether you will have to be doing 2.8 meters, 2800 mm of excavation to reach the footing bottom level. An addition of 100 mm is being done to accommodate your PCC, which we'll term it as a leveling course. So guys, we will be excavating right from the EGL till the footing top level very first, and providing the additional working space, after which you will be laying the 100 thick leveling course, which is a PCC, above which you will be start laying your shuttering, footing shuttering side faces, and after that you will be placing your footing reinforcement bars along with your column reinforcement bars. Then the concreting process happen and it will be stopped at this cyan color junction. The first pour of concreting is for footing, and the footing concreting will be stopped at this cyan color junction. Next, after for about 7 days of curing, you will be again starting to lift your column, and the first lift of the column will be stopped at the bottom level of your plinth beam. You will be exactly stopping the first lift of the concrete, of your column concrete, exactly at the bottom level of your plinth beam. And again, after curing this portion of the column for over 7 days, you will be starting with side face shuttering for your plinth beam. and you will be laying your plinth beam reinforcement, and then you will be concreting the entire plinth beam. So similar passion, you will be again starting your column concrete above your plinth beam top level, and you will be moving for the subsequent higher levels. One important thing we will have to be looking here is with the lift pit. See, in the architectural drawing itself, they have been clearly given indication of a lift pit. This lift pit is specifically provisioned to accommodate the machineries that will be there beneath your lift car. The ground floor is the lowermost accessible level in this entire structure, and below your ground floor you will have to be provisioning a lift pit to accommodate your machineries, lift machineries, which will always be beneath your lift car. And this being entirely submerged into your soil just to arrest the entry of groundwater, you will be making this watertighted, for which you will be casting this lift pit with the RCC with proper waterproofing measures. The lift cables will be straight away brought up till the lift machine room, and it will be hooked up to this lift machine room floor. Again, within this lift machine room, there will be several machineries that is taking care of the vertical motion of your lift. With that in mind, the structural drawing is given such a way that it is giving all the details of your lift pit. See, we said that the lift pit in the architectural drawing is asked only 1.5 meters from your plinth level, whereas from the NGL itself you are going 2.5 meters down to reach your foundation level, and addition of 300 plus 450, which will be 750. So altogether you are coming down to a depth of 3.25 meters from your plinth level, which will be too much for your lift machineries. So which will be hampering the whole lift activity, and hence that level required by the lift vendor will be maintained as it is by filling in the additional gap with the help of red earth or quarry dust only. No black cotton or clay soil to be used, to make sure that no swelling of soil will happen in subsequent activities. So this is with the excavation for your foundation and laying of your leveling course, providing side face shuttering for your foundation, laying the reinforcement bars of foundation, laying the column reinforcement bars, going ahead with the first pour of the footing, and this will be your first construction joint. Moving forward, you are doing the first lift of your column concreting till the bottom of plinth level. You will be again concreting the plinth beam. With all this various activity of concreting, you will be giving a gap of about 7 days for curing. Next, moving forward, friends, we will be looking at plinth level drawing. See, here in this plinth level drawing, all of the plinth beams that are given will be indicated. See, you will have to be comparing this plinth level structural drawing along with your ground floor architectural plan. These are being partition walls, needs a support, needs a foundation system. It may be a simple SSM, simple side stone masonry foundation like this, or Your wall may be even placed above the plinth beams. So right beneath your partitioned walls, you will need to be having at least a plinth beam or a proper SSM foundation to see that no settlement of your partition wall will take place. So having compared all of these plinth beams provided here are just below each and every architecturally planned partition walls. See, there may be errors in preparation of design drawings, which a site engineer has to verify prior execution. Just like he will have to be superimposing the drawings one over the other and check beneath every wall you are having a plinth beam. Beneath every architectural wall you will be having a plinth beam. These are your architectural walls with white colors and your plinth beams are with yellow colors. So you can notice beneath every architectural walls there is a plinth beam. There may be error. A plinth beam might have moved somewhere by 30 mm, 50 mm or even 100 mm, which may go unnoticed. But if you execute it with that discrepancy, you will be held responsible. The person who is at site level executing these activities will be held responsible, because prior execution, it's his responsibility to integrate all the design drawings and to check whether all the design requirements are captured. Here just you can notice there is a projection and this projection has no support. So there is no plinth beam provided beneath this projection, and locally you will have to be planning for a SSM foundation to support this wall. Otherwise, if you are simply supporting this wall on the compacted earth, high risk of this wall being settled is anticipated, and this will lead to the crack at the junction of ground floor roof and this wall. The junction where this wall meets the ground floor roof, you can witness a crack because this wall being settled, and that roof will be intact because of the column and beam arrangement. There you can notice a clear separation gap, which is very undesirable. Having all of us being a technical person, we can still understand this is just a partition wall, not a load bearing wall, and the settlement of this wall has no significant implication on the strength of the structure. But for a layman, for a common man, witnessing that crack itself, he will be panicked. He will be rushing out of the house. He will be calling all the authorities and checking what exactly has happened here. So this is such indicational cracks will definitely play a psychological role with the common man, with the layman. So you will have to be making double sure that you are not making any such mistakes. Okay. So thereby you can do several integrations and now we are moving into the floor level shuttering works. Friends, this being the first floor shuttering structural drawing, you will have to be again integrating this with your architectural drawing. The first floor shuttering drawing will be integrated with the first floor archi plan. And even along with this, you will have to be integrating the first floor structural drawing along with the ground floor architectural drawing. You will have to be first make sure that every column locations given in the architectural drawing is exactly matching with the structural drawings. If there is any deviation in the column location when compared with both structural and architectural drawings, this will have to be clearly raised with both the consultants, both architect as well as with the structural engineer, and you will have to be getting the confirmation which column location is correct. Otherwise, you will be in big problem. So why are we superimposing or integrating the first floor structural drawing into your ground floor architectural plan is we are making sure that no beam at your roof is happening somewhere between the habitat. Considering this is a bedroom, nobody will be expecting a beam running in between the room. Everyone will be planning the beam such a way that it has to get concealed within the architectural partition walls. So thereby we can clearly notice no violation of beams happening within the lower level habitat. Okay. And again, we have integrated our first floor structural drawing along with the first floor architectural plan just to make sure we have captured all the sunken areas. See, you can notice in this structural drawing, you can notice in this structural drawing, you have given various hatch legends. This hatch is legended as 300 mm sunk for the toilets. Here we have nomenclated. There will be a sunken area with 300 mm depression and it is for toilets. There will be a sunken area with 75 mm depression and it will be for balconies. Again, there is a sunken area, depressed area with 300 mm level difference. It will be for toilet. Here, this is your utility area, which is again being depressed by 75 mm. See, this demarcation should be captured, should be correct when you overlap the architectural plan with the structural drawing. If there is any deviation in this extent, if architectural drawing is showing this sunken hatch maybe somewhere till this area, and if it is mismatching with the extent shown in the structural drawing, it is wrong. There is a clear discrepancy between the two design drawings. So guys, you will have to be integrating both the design drawings upon each other, and you will have to be checking the extent of sunken areas, whether it is matching exactly the same. Okay. Look at here. We have sunken additionally. This is our structural drawing. The highlighted one is our structural drawing, and this is our architectural plan. There is a additional sunken extent shown in the structural drawing just because we cannot abruptly stop the hatching. See, this is the lower level, the ground floor toilet area. Just because in the first floor your toilet extent is stopping somewhere here, you cannot stop the or do the level difference in this very junction. Doing that, you can able to visualize that level difference in the lower area. So that level difference has to be extended till the lowered area partition wall. Keeping that in mind, this additional sunken is provisioned here. So this is how you guys have to be integrating various design drawings to make sure that both the design intents are well within the acceptable limits, and you will have to be executing in the same way so that no violation of design intent will happen. So having briefing you guys with few design intents, few basic design intents that need to be well taken care prior execution. We will be further tomorrow discussing on various shuttering activity, conventional shuttering activity for various structural elements like columns, beams, slabs. And for tomorrow, we will also be discussing with some illustrative examples for designing these shuttering schemes. You cannot directly lay your shuttering as it is without checking its safety. See, this shuttering box may not be capable of withstanding this concrete load, and having placed this shuttering box all around the concrete, if you start pouring the concrete in, there may be chances of busting of this shuttering box taking place at the site level, which may even go up to the severity causing the life of a site labor. Well, this is even more dangerous when you're dealing with the shuttering system of your beams and slabs. You will have to be properly calculating the load that is being transferred on each and every vertical prop, whether the number of vertical props provided beneath each and every member is sufficient enough to take care of the construction loads. And even before doing all of this execution activity, you will be preparing a method statement on the procedure, how exactly you will be preparing or how exactly you will be conducting the execution. You will have to be preparing a method statement which you will be submitting it to the concerned consultants, maybe architect or a structural engineer. You will have to be obtaining the approvals from the concerned persons, and then you will have to start your execution activity. So all of these topics will be captured in tomorrow's session, and then we will be moving further with the My1 technologies. And tomorrow we are planning to join again, say by 5 o'clock in the evening, and hope all of you will be in time. And for any of your queries, you can start asking now. We will be having a very limited interaction section now. Anybody having any query or questions with the discussion we had so far? Can start your interaction now.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Yeah, hello. I would like to know the sunken slab. What kind of slab do we consider it, and what way do we design it? Is it a simply supported or a continuous one?
That depends. See, I'll show you a detailed drawing of that. See, this is the junction where your reinforcement is being
Kushal,
detailed.
sorry for the interruption. Kushal, your screen is not visible. Can you please share it?
Okay. I hope the drawing is visible now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. See, this is the junction where exactly you can notice there is a sunk of slab happening, and this sunken provision is done for the toilet area. See, here we are having the detailing arrangement in such a way that the top part is just being brought back inside by 400 mm. You can consider the effect of continuity only when your moment that is developed in this in this beam slab junction is addressed with the reinforcement detailing. What happens is, usually for the behavior of continuous system, you will be requiring some arrangement. Say, I would like to give you an illustration. You all can visualize a stone bench which you will be normally looking at in your institutions, in the parks of your institutions, where it will be provisioned with some stone bench arrangements. Guys, here there will be a vertical stone, two vertical stones, above which there will be a horizontal member placed. Upon loading this vertically, there will be a deflection behavior in this horizontal member, and this deflection behavior of the horizontal member will be independent, wherein if you consider this as three sticks. Now this system is not stone bench. This system is three different sticks, two being placed vertically and one being placed horizontally. Now, if you tie these joints along with the elastic member, say with rubber bands, and you start loading the horizontal member from top, upon deflection of the horizontal member, the vertical members will also move. It will not allow the horizontal member to deflect freely, just as it was in the earlier behavior. Here in this example 1, when the horizontal member was deflecting, it was free to deflect, and these vertical members never helped in controlling this deflection. Whereas in the illustration 2, when the horizontal member was getting deflected, the vertical member didn't allow the horizontal member to deflect freely, and if you can notice, the deflection of y in this horizontal member, the deflection in the illustration 2 will be less than y. Considering the continuous system, where there will be an additional member in between. In the continuous system, there will be an additional member in between. So there will be 2 spans minimum. If at all a system has to be termed as a continuous system, you will need to be having a minimum of 2 spans. See, upon loading again here, if this part of the horizontal member starting to bend, the other part will start lifting it back. Okay, thereby it creates a tension in the top here. There will be a hogging bending moment that is created in the top of intermediate support. Here in the 3-member system, this is a typical example of beam column junctions. This will be your 2 columns supporting the horizontal beam, where your beam rebar is being anchored into the column, will be a perfect example for the fixed support behavior. This stone bench, which you can visualize in your institution parks, will be a perfect example for your simple supported behavior, where upon loading your horizontal member is very free to move. Here your horizontal member will be not easily moved down or deflected down as in case of 1. Here your when this part of your horizontal member starts bending down, the other parts restrain that moment and it will pull it back. When it is pulling back, as I said, there will be a negative bending moment created at the top of this junction. If you are able to cater reinforcement demand, see if the bending moment generated here, say some 100 kilonewton meters, and the reinforcement requirement to cater to that demand, say T10 at 100 center to center, if you are providing a reinforcement of T10 at 100 center to center, and this bar to be continuous again, only by providing a reinforcement of T10 at 100 center to center will not help, because this moment that is being generated should be shared between both of these slabs. How can you do that? You can do that by detailing it such a way you are joining both the top bars together. Thereby there is a flow of, or there will be a movement of your moment that is generated at the top, that is the negative moment that is generated at the top junction, and it has to be shared between both the slabs at the top. And now if you are providing this detailing along with the reinforcement demand, that is T10 at 100 center to center, then you can achieve that continuous slab action. If any one of the 2 criteria is missing here, either you are not providing that necessary reinforcement T10 at 100 center to center, or if you are not providing that continuity, this will never behave as a continuous system, and it will be as simple as your previous simple supported behavior. Now the current idealization is this slab, the sunken slab, is purely simply supported between these 2 beams. I hope I have cleared your doubt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Kushal, we have 2 more questions related to sunken area. Like Manish Shetty, can you explain about the extended hatching for sunken area?
Okay.
And Kushal, one more question, that why the utility area should be sunk?
Okay.
Okay. And the question is from Gaurav. Okay.
So guys, this is our first floor architectural plan integrated with the first floor structural drawing. This is our ground floor architectural plan integrated with the first floor structural drawing. Now there is a toilet space in the ground floor in this very downwards to this junction. If you are stopping your hatch, say if you are stopping this hatch exactly to this extent, to a distance of say 1355, see it will be stopping somewhere here. Then if a person stands beneath this slab in the ground floor toilet, he can able to notice there is a level difference that is being captured at the first floor level, and this area will be at the raised level. So to avoid that uneven or very improper aesthetic appearance in the first floor structural plan, we will be extending the sunken area that is matching the ground floor partition wall. So thereby we are achieving that there is no such awkward level difference is being witnessed by the person visualizing this slab from the ground floor. That is the main reason for extension of this ground floor, sorry, for the extension of this hatched area in the first floor level. Is your doubt clarified, Mr. Gaurav?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Kushal, we have one more question from Yasin. Can we construct a bathroom without a sunken slab?
Definitely we can do that. By how it is like, see, instead of lowering this area, you will be raising this, you will be filling this, just like
Kushal, we have one more question related to that. Kashyap is asking, sir, is the pipe routing shown in the plan?
sorry, your audio is gone.
Kashyap is asking a question related to, say same thing. Sir, is the pipe routing shown in the plan?
Is the pipe routing
Shown
in
in
the plan?
Yes.
Different agency termed as MEP guy who will be looking after mechanical aspects like your lift work, electrical aspects, and the plumbing aspects. All together, they will term them as MEP consultants. So these guys will be providing their MEP drawings in which they will be capturing all the pipeline activity. So if you are not sunking your structure, your slab, what you will be doing is you will be maintaining the sunken slab level, toilet slab level same as outside area. Then you will have to be fill the insides of your toilets. Thereby you are reducing the inside floor to floor height. See, earlier it was say 2.775, and now that 300 mm is being reduced just because you have not sunken your toilet extent. Now you are again doing your pipeline routing and filling this area up, thereby you're reducing the floor to floor heights. Okay. Any more doubts?
Okay, that's fine. Guys, if any questions, you can unmute yourself and go with the question. Sir, the pipe routing showing the plan. Got it. Thank you. Okay, fine. Yes, Kushal.
So guys, tomorrow we will be again meeting at 5 o'clock in the evening. As already mentioned, we will be discussing on the shuttering scheme designs as well as the method statement preparations. Hope this session has benefited you guys, and for any further clarifications you can email us or WhatsApp us at any time. Within a matter of 24 hours your doubts will be addressed. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for all joining the session. Yes, thank you, Kushal. Yes. Vaibhav, you stay on.
Sachin, is there any more questions?
No, Kushal, you please be hold on.
Do I need to hang out?
Yeah, you can leave. No issues. You can leave. You can leave. Thanks. Thanks for the session.
Thank you.
Vaibhav, are you there?